Okay, welcome to the fourth video in the series, the video on Unit 3, Exchanges. This is what you need to know before you show up to your first day of AS Biology. Now, in honesty, this material might come along a little bit later, depending on how your course is structured. Certainly in our course, this will come along after you've completed the biochem and cells topic, because it relies quite heavily on the stuff you do in the cells topic in terms of diffusion and membranes and exchanges and so on and so forth. So what you will need to know, right, what you need to remember, and again, another plug for this GCSE to A-level progression page, is essentially what you've learned so far about how the lungs, the gut, the circulation, and the xylem and phloem of plants, the leaf structure of plants, works. Okay, you've done a bit of all of that at GCSE, and it would be great if you've not forgotten it. Okay, so let's dive straight into it then. This is the basic rules for how exchanges in organisms work. Okay, we call this Fick's law. You'll never be asked what is Fick's law, but it's a very useful way to answer questions. And I did an example of one such question in the introduction video. Okay, that the rate of diffusion, the rate that stuff gets into an organism across a membrane, is proportional to its surface area, the concentration gradient, and inversely proportional to the distance. Okay, so the bigger the surface area and the bigger the concentration gradient, the better, and we want a small diffusion distance. Okay, so bigger the better for that one. That one wants to be large, this one small, so the molecules can get across easily. And that applies across all of the gas exchange and food exchange and material exchange surfaces you are going to learn about at AS level. You're going to learn about a lot, some you will have heard of, the lungs, the gut, and so on and so forth. You're also going to learn about fish and insects and more detail on plants and the heart and circulation than you've done before. Okay, so here's the basics we want you to know, right? So this is a basic fly through of the lung structure. Okay, so thank you to Science Photo Library for these wonderful animations. There's the outside of the lungs. You can see the diaphragm down at the bottom. We're going to move in through the voice box down here into the trachea. The trachea will then branch off into the bronchi. There we are, and as we keep branching, we're going to get into the bronchioles. Okay, these are all supported by cartilage rings and made of smooth muscle. We keep branching all the way down until we end up in the alveoli at the end, and that's air sacs surrounded by alveoli is what gives the lungs such a huge folded up surface area inside your body, and that's where the materials get exchanged. So you should also remember you have covered the mechanism of breathing, how the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles bring about the action of breathing, and mentioned pressure, lowering pressure as you breathe in, diaphragm goes down, low pressure in the chest cavity, which then draws air in, and the reverse on the way out. You should remember all of those labels on the right over there in terms of what the structure is. Not so worried about things like this here, but certainly bronchioles, bronchi, windpipe, diaphragm, alveoli should all be familiar to you. And of course, the structure of the alveoli and how it is that oxygen gets in and out of the blood, oxygen gets into the blood and carbon dioxide gets out so easily. Thin alveoli wall, do not be tempted to say cell walls, you are not a plant, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that should all be familiar. If it isn't, go revise it. Okay, the next part where you're going to talk about exchanges is the human gut. We go into this in quite some detail, so a basic understanding of the order of the organs in the digestive system would be really helpful. Okay, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, all those ones there that you've been doing. You did it at Key Stage 3, did it at GCSE, you should be familiar, and you should also have a knowledge of what's over here on the right, the idea that on the small intestine, again, it's about surface area. You've got these things called villi that are folded, that's basically folded up there. You've got these things on the villi called microvilli on the end of each cell that increase the surface area even more. Okay, so a knowledge of that will be really helpful as a starting point. Again, if you don't remember, go revise it. So the next system, of course, where exchanges take place is the circulatory system. So a basic structure of the heart, okay, how blood moves through the heart, in what order. We've got how the circulation works, the idea that one half of the heart pumps blood to the whole body, the other half pumps it around the lungs, okay, what the names of the blood vessels are, so on and so forth, and then the structure of arteries, veins, and capillaries, and the idea that exchanges take place in capillaries because they're really thin and there's a lot of them. Okay, so that is what you need to know about the circulatory system, a brief overview. If you don't remember it, go look it up. And then, of course, everybody forgets plants. Plants have to exchange materials as well. At GCSE, you looked at the structure. Excuse me. You looked at the structure of the lungs here. So, structure of the leaf here with the palisade mesophyll and the spongy mesophyll, the guard cells, and so on and so forth. You looked at the xylem and the phloem, the differences there between, right, that brought materials up and down the plant. And then down in the roots, you've got the root hair cell, how that is a classic example of a specialized cell, how that increases the absorption of materials from the soil. And when you put it all together, you would have looked a little bit at the transpiration stream. There's no heart in a plant, there's no pump, so they rely on evaporation from the leaves and water being drawn up through the roots. Okay, so that's essentially the physiology and anatomy part of the course. It would be really helpful if you remembered the basics. Okay, next up, last one, the genetics and genetic variation topic.